and for a trial lawyer, that's hard. First of all, it's just wonderful to see everybody here, and you know, he can thank you, but the two people you really have to thank is Gene and Julian Gersten, who is the president of the Vermont Jazz Center Board. And when I first came to the Jazz Center, it was this big. Then it was that big. And then the next time, in the last few years, it's filled in the center, and it's just incredible. And it's due to their efforts, and strictly their efforts. But the small world story is about 5 or 6 years ago, Julian Gersten, who's sitting in the front row over here with his wife, was made president of the board. Mr. Brodsky had been president for many, many years and gotten on in years, and Julian, who teaches at Keene State, became president of the board. And Gene introduced me, and I had my friend Al Wakefield, who's here, introduced him to the center that night. We were out in the lobby, and Gene came up and introduced me to Julian. And the name sounded familiar. And I said, Mr. Gersten, where are you from? He said, Washington, D.C. I'm from D.C., but I've been in Vermont 45 years. And I said, rang a bell. I said, is your mother's first name Florence? And he looked at me. And he looked at me again. And his wife looked at me. And after they repaired their jaw, how do you know my mother? And I said, you won't believe this, but your mother was my first grade and second grade teacher at Barnard Elementary School in Washington, D.C.
Oh my.
And 2 weeks ago at my 50th high school reunion, a bunch of us were talking about her and exchanging memories, and we had our picture taken together. And it just, I went home and I called my sister, who also had her. She was in Arizona, and a couple of people who were in that picture, and we just had the most wonderful experience. I tried to call her, and Julian happened to be there. She was still living in D.C., and age had robbed her of memory, and I sort of said to her, I don't know how you could forget me. You either always yelling at me or I was in trouble. I was sort of but anyway, she was an inspiration. Obviously, people in their late 60s, early 70s who spend time exchanging memories of first grade teachers were impressed. Florence left us a couple years ago, and I thought I would honor her and her memory and the warm feelings that have been created between Julian and his wife and me over it by sponsoring a concert in her memory, in her honor.
It's lovely.
Thank you.